Imagine standing on the edge of an ancient grassland, the sun setting over a horizon that hasn't changed in 2 million years. The warm breeze carries whispers of a past so distant that it feels more like mythology than history. The silhouettes appear on the ridge, not quite human as we know ourselves today, but unmistakably our ancestors. They move with purpose, their muscular frames adapted to a life of constant movement and vigilance. These are not the primitive brutes of outdated textbooks. These are Homo erectus, the upright humans, perhaps the most successful human species to ever walk the earth. Their legacy spans nearly 2 million years, 10 times longer than our own species has existed. While our modern civilization struggles with sustainability after mere centuries, they mastered survival across epochs of dramatic climate change. What was their secret? How did a species with a brain 2/3 the size of our own navigate ice ages, volcanic winters, and predator-filled landscapes across Africa, Asia, and Europe? Tonight we explore the most overlooked chapter in human evolution, the extraordinary survival of Homo erectus and their mastery of the most transformative technology in human history: fire. The evidence suggests they didn't merely use it. They mastered it in ways we're only beginning to understand. The conventional narrative taught in schools presents our evolutionary cousins as primitive tool users who stumbled upon fire by chance. But recent discoveries paint a dramatically different picture of their capabilities and intelligence. Archaeologists working in South Africa, China, and Indonesia have uncovered evidence challenging everything we thought we knew about early human cognition. The implications rewrite not just prehistory, but our understanding of what it means to be human. For most of the 20th century, scientists portrayed Homo erectus as mentally limited, anatomically advanced but cognitively primitive. Their 2 million year survival was attributed to physical adaptations and simple luck. But how does luck last 2 million years? The mathematics of survival over such timescales demands something more, a sophisticated understanding of their environment that borders on mastery. This documentary presents the emerging evidence that Homo erectus wasn't just another failed branch on our evolutionary tree. They were the true pioneers of humanity's relationship with fire. What if they didn't just maintain flames found in nature, but could create fire at will? What if their understanding of combustion extended beyond cooking and warmth to landscape management, social organization, and even medicine? The clues are scattered across 3 continents, hiding in cave deposits, fossil teeth, and microscopic traces on ancient stone tools. Together, they tell a story far more complex than we've been willing to acknowledge. From the savannas of East Africa to the forests of Southeast Asia, Homo erectus carried knowledge of fire that transformed not just their diet, but their entire relationship with the natural world. This mastery may explain how they survived catastrophic events that wiped out countless other species, including volcanic winters that plunged the planet into darkness for years at a time. The evidence challenges our species' narcissism, the comforting belief that we, Homo sapiens, represent the pinnacle of cognitive evolution. What if sophisticated intelligence emerged far earlier than we've acknowledged? As we explore these ancient landscapes tonight, we'll piece together a new understanding of our evolutionary heritage, one that recognizes the profound accomplishments of those who came before us. Discoveries at sites like Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa and Zhoukoudian in China reveal controlled fire use dating back nearly 1 million years. But tantalizing evidence suggests their relationship with fire may be twice that age. Join me as we trace the footsteps of these forgotten fire masters. From their emergence in Africa to their expansion across Asia and beyond, this is not just their story, it's our origin story. Understanding how Homo erectus mastered fire helps us understand how we became human. Chapter 2. Premise and Stakes. The implications of Homo erectus mastering fire extend far beyond academic curiosity. If they could create and control fire at will, we must fundamentally reconsider human cognitive evolution. Intelligence, it seems, isn't a recent evolutionary development. The neural architecture necessary for complex planning, technological innovation, and environmental manipulation emerged much earlier than we've acknowledged. Consider what fire mastery requires: understanding combustion principles, identifying appropriate materials, creating and maintaining specific conditions, predicting and controlling outcomes. These are hallmarks of advanced cognition. For decades, we've used brain size as a proxy for intelligence, assuming our larger brains made us uniquely capable. But what if that assumption is fundamentally flawed? Elephants and whales have larger brains than humans, yet we don't consider them more intelligent. Perhaps brain organization and neural efficiency matter more than sheer volume. If Homo erectus, with their smaller brains, could master fire creation, we must reconsider what drove human cognitive evolution. Was it climate change, social complexity, or perhaps the mental demands of fire technology itself? The stakes of this investigation touch the very foundation of what we consider uniquely human: language, abstract thought, planning for distant futures. All might have emerged earlier than we've imagined. What we're really asking is, when did we become human? Not anatomically, but cognitively. When did minds capable of technological innovation and cultural transmission first walk the earth? This question holds profound implications for how we understand ourselves today. Our relationship with technology, our environmental adaptability, even our social structures may have roots stretching back 2 million years. The ability to create and control fire represents perhaps the most significant technological leap in human evolution. It's the dividing line between being at the mercy of nature and beginning to master it. If Homo erectus crossed this threshold, they weren't simply surviving. They were engineering their environment, reshaping ecosystems and creating niches that previously didn't exist. Consider how fire transforms human possibilities. It extends daylight, deters predators, makes previously inedible foods nutritious, allows migration into colder regions, creates social gathering spaces. These advantages compound over generations. Fire doesn't just help individuals survive, it transforms how populations interact with their environment across evolutionary time. The mastery of fire represents humanity's first step toward environmental control. Before agriculture, before cities, before writing, fire was our original technology for reshaping the world. If Homo erectus truly mastered fire creation, not just maintenance, they weren't passive beneficiaries of natural advantages. They were active engineers of their own evolutionary destiny. This has profound implications for understanding human evolution as not just physical adaptation, but cognitive and cultural evolution. Technology and knowledge become as important as biological traits. When we examine the archaeological record through this lens, puzzling aspects of Homo erectus suddenly make sense: their rapid expansion across different environments, their extraordinary survival through climate fluctuations, their anatomical evolution. Fire changes everything. It alters digestion, reducing the need for massive jaws and guts to process raw food. It allows for safety in open landscapes where predators would otherwise dominate. But most importantly, fire creates a selective pressure favoring bigger brains. The cognitive demands of fire management would reward those with better planning abilities, memory, and technological innovation. What if our intelligence isn't primarily for social manipulation, as many have theorized? What if it evolved significantly in response to the cognitive challenges of technological mastery? The question then becomes, did we get smart and then discover fire? Or did fire help make us smart? The evidence increasingly suggests the latter. If true, this reframes our entire understanding of cognitive evolution. Technology doesn't just result from intelligence, it shapes and drives it. This feedback loop between technology and cognition may have begun not with Homo sapiens, but with Homo erectus 2 million years ago, making them not just our ancestors, but the original architects of human technological civilization. What's at stake in this investigation is nothing less than our understanding of what makes us human, and whether those qualities emerged far earlier, and for different reasons, than we've long believed. Chapter 3. Historical Context. To understand Homo erectus, we must first place them in context. They emerged approximately 2 million years ago in East Africa, evolving from earlier human species like Homo habilis. The world they inhabited differed dramatically from our own. Earth was in the midst of oscillating ice ages, with climate conditions shifting between warm interglacials and harsh glacial periods. African savannas were expanding, forests retreating. This changing landscape created both challenges and opportunities for early humans adapting to new ecological niches. Physically, Homo erectus represented a significant evolutionary advance. Standing between 4'9" and 6'1" tall, they possessed nearly modern body proportions, with longer legs and shorter arms than their predecessors. Their name, upright human, reflects their fully bipedal stance. They walked and ran as we do, with an efficient stride that allowed covering vast distances with minimal energy expenditure. Their skulls housed brains averaging 900 cubic centimeters, significantly larger than earlier species, but smaller than our own 1,350 cc average. This brain expansion represented a major evolutionary investment. The fossil record shows Homo erectus spreading rapidly beyond Africa. By 1.8 million years ago, they had reached Georgia in the Caucasus. By 1.7 million years ago, they appeared in East Asia. This extraordinary dispersal across continents required something unprecedented: adaptability to dramatically different environments, from African savannas to Asian jungles to temperate woodlands. What technology allowed such expansion? Stone tools certainly played a role. Homo erectus crafted more sophisticated implements than their predecessors, but tools alone don't explain their success. The missing piece of their technological repertoire was almost certainly fire. Without it, surviving in many of these environments would have been nearly impossible. The conventional timeline places controlled fire use around 400,000 years ago, with some contested evidence pushing it back to about 800,000 years. But this creates a puzzling gap. How did Homo erectus survive for over 1 million years in environments ranging from tropical to temperate without fire? The answer may be that our timeline is wrong. Recent evidence suggests fire use may be as old as Homo erectus itself. Burnt bones and sediments at Koobi Fora in Kenya potentially push controlled fire back to 1.5 million years ago. Fire would have transformed their lives in fundamental ways. Beyond cooking food and providing warmth, it would have restructured their entire social organization. Imagine the firelight extending productive hours beyond sunset, creating a focal point for social gathering, establishing a protected space where knowledge could be shared. Fire requires collective maintenance and creates natural incentives for cooperative behavior. The individuals who could reliably create and control fire would have enjoyed immense evolutionary advantages. This technological mastery didn't happen overnight. It likely evolved through stages, from opportunistic use of natural fires to maintaining found flames to eventually creating fire at will. The fossil record shows something remarkable happening to Homo erectus anatomy over time. Their digestive tract shortened, jaw muscles reduced, and teeth became smaller, all consistent with a diet of cooked food. Richard Wrangham's cooking hypothesis suggests that fire didn't just help Homo erectus survive, it fundamentally shaped their evolution. Cooked food provides more calories with less digestive effort. This caloric windfall could be redirected to the most metabolically expensive organ, the brain, creating an evolutionary pathway for increasing cognitive capacity. The emerging picture shows Homo erectus not as primitive fire users, but as true pyrotechnologists. Their relationship with fire was sophisticated, cultural, and potentially ritual. Evidence from sites across Africa and Asia reveals not just opportunistic fire use, but patterns suggesting deliberate, controlled burning for specific purposes. This level of control requires deep understanding. If Homo erectus truly mastered fire creation early in their evolutionary history, it would explain their unprecedented success. No other human species survived so long or spread so far. Chapter 4. First Evidence. The archaeological evidence for early fire mastery remains controversial, but compelling patterns have emerged. Let's examine what the Earth has preserved from these ancient flame keepers. Our first stop, Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa. Deep within this limestone cavern, archaeologists discovered what may be the earliest definitive evidence of controlled fire use. dating to approximately 1 million years ago. The evidence includes burnt animal bones, ash deposits, and altered sediments found 30 meters from the cave entrance. Their location deep inside the cave rules out natural fires. These flames were brought here intentionally. Microscopic analysis reveals the critical difference between wildfire and controlled burning. Natural fires burn hotter and more chaotically, while controlled flames leave distinctive patterns in the archaeological record. At Wonderwerk, the evidence points clearly to controlled use. The ash deposits show temperatures consistent with small maintained fires rather than the intense heat of wildfires. Moving to East Africa, sites at Koobi Fora and Zhoukoudian in Kenya present even older potential evidence. Clay deposits show signs of heating to specific temperatures between 400 to 500 degrees Celsius, precisely the range of controlled fires. Critics argue these could result from natural causes, lightning strikes or wildfires, but the pattern of burnt materials and their consistent temperature range suggests something more deliberate. The most controversial evidence comes from Zhoukoudian cave in South Africa. Here, burnt bones dating to 1.5 million years ago bear microscopic patterns distinguishing them from bones burned in natural fires. Under powerful microscopes, bones heated in controlled conditions develop distinctive fracture patterns different from those in wildfires. The Zhoukoudian specimens show precisely these controlled burning signatures. Crossing to Asia, the famous Peking Man site at Zhoukoudian in China long served as textbook evidence for early fire use. Excavations in the 1920s and 30s uncovered what appeared to be ash layers up to 6 meters deep. However, later analysis cast doubt on these findings. Were the dark layers truly ash or mineral deposits? The debate continues, with recent research supporting at least some evidence of controlled burning. What's particularly intriguing at Zhoukoudian isn't just potential fire evidence, but its association with sophisticated behavior. The site contains hundreds of thousands of stone tools and processed animal remains. In Indonesia, sites at Trinil and Sangiran tell a similar story. Homo erectus populations thrived in these tropical environments, leaving behind stone tools alongside evidence suggesting fire knowledge. But the most compelling evidence may not be archaeological at all. It comes from examining Homo erectus themselves, their teeth, digestive systems, and evolutionary trajectory. Dental microwear analysis, examining microscopic patterns on tooth surfaces, shows differences between species that eat raw food versus cooked food. Homo erectus teeth show wear patterns consistent with a diet including cooked foods. Their smaller molars and reduced jaw muscles also suggest adaptation to a softer, more processed diet. These anatomical changes align perfectly with the adoption of cooking. Energy budget calculations reveal another smoking gun. Raw food diets require enormous amounts of chewing time, up to 6 hours daily for primates our size. Cooking dramatically reduces this energetic burden. The calories saved could support larger brains, which require extraordinary energy to develop and maintain. Homo erectus brain size increased dramatically over their evolutionary history, from around 850 cc to over 1100 cc in later specimens. This expansion correlates with anatomical changes suggesting cooking. Fire mastery would also explain their geographic expansion. Without fire, surviving in temperate zones with cold seasons becomes nearly impossible for a tropical adapted species. Yet Homo erectus fossils appear in northern China and the Caucasus region by 1.7 million years ago. How did they survive winter without fire? The conventional answer, that they migrated seasonally, fails to explain permanent settlements in these regions. Only fire makes year-round habitation possible in temperate zones. We also see evidence in their social organization. Sites like Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel show spatial organization suggesting communal living focused around central areas, potential hearths. The pattern emerges across continents. Wherever Homo erectus went, we find evidence of increasingly sophisticated behavior. Complex tools, cooperative hunting, and signs of environmental modification. But the most tantalizing evidence remains elusive. Actual fire-making tools. What would these early humans have used to create flames at will? Friction methods, like hand drills or bow drills, leave few archaeological traces. The wooden components would have decomposed millennia ago. Percussion methods, striking minerals like pyrite against flint, might be preserved. But identifying stones used specifically for fire starting requires microscopic analysis rarely applied to older specimens. Recent experimental archaeology has demonstrated that even simple techniques could reliably produce fire. Using materials available to Homo erectus, modern researchers can create flames in minutes. If modern humans with no special training can master these techniques, why couldn't Homo erectus? Their proven technological sophistication in other domains suggests they certainly possess the necessary capabilities. Yet the mystery deepens when we consider the timing. If Homo erectus mastered fire 1.5 million years ago, why don't we find abundant evidence at every site? The answer may lie in preservation bias. Fire evidence, particularly from open-air sites, rarely survives the eons. What we see may be just a fraction of what once existed. As we stand at this archaeological crossroads, the weight of evidence increasingly tips toward much earlier fire mastery than traditionally accepted. But the most compelling chapters of this story are just beginning to unfold. What if Homo erectus didn't just use fire, but understood it in ways we're only beginning to comprehend? What if their relationship with flames extended beyond mere utility to something approaching reverence? The next discoveries we'll explore suggest something truly revolutionary, that Homo erectus may have been the first true pyrotechnologists, with fire knowledge that shaped not just their survival, but their very identity as a species. Chapter 5. Contradictions and Anomalies. As we deepen our investigation into Homo erectus and their relationship with fire, we encounter troubling contradictions in the conventional narrative. The timeline doesn't add up, and anomalous evidence challenges established theories. First, let's confront the central paradox. How did a species survive for over 1.5 million years across 3 continents without mastering fire creation? The standard explanation, that they used naturally occurring fires, collapses under scrutiny. Natural fires are seasonal, unpredictable, and dangerous. Lightning strikes occur primarily during rainy seasons when maintaining flames would be most challenging. Volcanic activity is geographically limited and often catastrophic rather than beneficial. Relying on found flames presents practical problems. Fires must be continuously maintained, requiring constant attention and specialized knowledge. Transporting fire during migrations presents logistical challenges almost impossible to overcome without containers. Yet Homo erectus thrived across dramatically different environments, from tropical forests to temperate woodlands. They survived in regions with defined wet and dry seasons, where natural fires would be unavailable for months. The conventional timeline creates another contradiction: the anatomical evidence. Homo erectus shows clear adaptations to cooked food, smaller teeth, reduced jaw muscles, and shorter digestive systems, appearing much earlier than supposed fire evidence. This anatomical evolution began nearly 2 million years ago, yet mainstream archaeology dates controlled fire to 400,000, 800,000 years ago. This creates an unbridgeable gap of over 1 million years. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham calls this the cooking enigma. How could bodies evolve for cooked food before cooking technology existed? The simplest explanation is that our timeline is wrong. Another contradiction emerges in Homo erectus migration patterns. Their fossils appear in northern China and Georgia, Caucasus, by 1.7 million years ago, regions with freezing winters. Without fire, survival would be virtually impossible. Some archaeologists suggest seasonal migration as an explanation, but the fossil and archaeological evidence indicates permanent settlements, not seasonal occupation. This requires year-round adaptation to cold, impossible without fire. Now let's examine anomalies that don't fit the narrative. At Koobi Fora in Kenya, archaeologists discovered fragments of reddened sediment dating to 1.5 million years ago. Microscopic analysis revealed these fragments were heated to precisely 400 degrees C, the signature temperature range of controlled fires. Natural fires burn hotter and more irregularly, rarely producing this specific heat pattern. At Wonderwerk Cave, the location of burnt materials creates another anomaly. The evidence appears 30 meters deep inside the cave, where natural fires cannot reach. Something, or someone, brought flames deep underground. Perhaps most intriguing is the dark earth anomaly, appearing at numerous Homo erectus sites. These distinctive soil layers contain elevated levels of potassium, phosphorus, and magnesium, the chemical signature of ancient hearths. For decades, archaeologists attributed these dark earth deposits to mineral infiltration or natural processes. Recent reanalysis with advanced techniques has revealed many contain microscopic ash particles and heat-altered minerals. At Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, a 790,000-year-old site, archaeologists discovered something remarkable. Spatial analysis revealed consistent patterns, specific areas for flint knapping, others for plant processing, and distinct clusters of burnt materials. This organized use of space suggests communal living around central hearths, a social pattern centering on fire. The controlled use of landscape indicates sophisticated environmental knowledge, extending beyond mere survival. Another anomaly appears in the charcoal record. At multiple Homo erectus sites, charcoal fragments show consistent wood species selection, not random burning but deliberate choice of specific materials. Modern hunter-gatherers demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of different woods' burning properties, some for cooking, others for light, others for smoke. The archaeological pattern suggests similarly nuanced understanding dating back hundreds of thousands of years. We also find anomalies in tool assemblages. Certain stone implements show microscopic patterns of heat alteration, deliberate heating to improve flaking properties. This technique requires precise temperature control and material knowledge. Heat-treating stone tools is a sophisticated technology still practiced by modern flint knappers. The process requires maintaining specific temperatures for extended periods, impossible without mastery of fire dynamics. The geographic anomaly remains most puzzling. How did a tropical adapted species expand into temperate zones without creating fire? The conventional explanation that they found and maintained natural fires becomes increasingly implausible. Consider the practical challenges: maintaining flames during migrations of hundreds of kilometers, keeping fires alive during torrential monsoons, finding fuel in unfamiliar landscapes. The logistics demand fire creation knowledge. An unexpected line of evidence comes from burn patterns on Homo erectus fossils themselves. Several specimens show healed burn injuries, indicating they survived close encounters with flames. These healed burns suggest medical knowledge. Treatment of burn injuries requires specific care to prevent infection. It also indicates regular proximity to fire, consistent with daily use and management. Perhaps the most significant anomaly is the technological plateau observed in Homo erectus tool development. Their stone tool technology remained remarkably consistent for over 1 million years, a phenomenon archaeologists call the Acheulean stasis. This technological stability contrasts sharply with their biological evolution and geographic expansion. If their cognitive capacity was increasing, why didn't stone tools show corresponding innovation? The answer may be that their technological innovation focused elsewhere, on perishable materials and fire technology that rarely preserves. Wood, plant fibers, and fire management wouldn't survive in the archaeological record. This preservation bias creates a fundamental limitation in our understanding. We've constructed evolutionary narratives based primarily on what survives, stone and bone, potentially missing the most important technological developments. When we examine living hunter-gatherer groups, stone tools represent a tiny fraction of their total material culture. The vast majority involves organic materials, precisely what disappears from ancient sites. Therein lies the fundamental contradiction in paleoanthropology. We build narratives on preserved materials while acknowledging they represent perhaps 1% of ancient technology. Fire technology falls into this archaeological blind spot. Recent experimental archaeology has demonstrated how this bias affects our understanding. When modern researchers create and use prehistoric technologies, they discover sophisticated solutions that leave minimal archaeological traces. If we step back and reconsider the evidence without preconceptions, a different picture emerges. One where Homo erectus possessed sophisticated fire knowledge much earlier than previously thought. This recognition solves multiple contradictions simultaneously. Their anatomical evolution makes sense. Their geographic expansion becomes explainable. The archaeological anomalies find context. The emerging narrative presents Homo erectus not as primitive fire users, but as true fire specialists. Their cognitive capacity wasn't directed toward stone tool innovation, but toward mastering the most transformative technology of all. Chapter 6. Myths and out-of-place evidence. Throughout human cultures, fire origin myths hold special prominence. From Prometheus stealing fire from the gods to the Cherokee fire-carrying spider, these stories share remarkable similarities across isolated traditions. These myths consistently describe fire as something obtained with great difficulty, often through trickery or theft. They rarely portray humans as fire creators, but as recipients of external knowledge. Could these stories preserve ancient cultural memories? Do they encode something about our evolutionary relationship with fire that science is only beginning to rediscover? Anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss noted striking parallels in fire myths worldwide. They typically involve a mediator figure, neither fully human nor divine, who transfers fire knowledge from nature to humanity. These mediators often pay a price for this transfer. Prometheus is chained to a rock. The Cherokee spider is permanently marked. Australian Aboriginal myths describe fire-bringers bearing scars. The consistency of this narrative structure suggests these aren't mere coincidences. They may represent cultural encoding of evolutionary memories, our ancestral relationship with fire preserved through oral tradition. Many indigenous traditions distinguish between wildfire and human fire, recognizing fundamental differences between natural flames and controlled burning. This distinction echoes archaeological evidence for intentional fire management. Aboriginal Australian fire stick farming demonstrates sophisticated ecological knowledge passed down through generations. These practices, potentially dating back 65,000 years, use controlled burning to manage landscapes and enhance resource availability. When European colonizers encountered indigenous fire management, they often misinterpreted it as primitive or destructive. Only recently have Western scientists recognized these practices as sophisticated ecological adaptations maintained over countless generations. This colonial misinterpretation mirrors how we viewed Homo erectus, assuming cognitive limitations based on our limited understanding of their technology. We've projected our biases onto the archaeological record. Now let's examine truly anomalous findings, evidence that doesn't fit neatly into current frameworks. These out-of-place discoveries challenge conventional timelines and force reconsideration of early human capabilities. The first comes from Chezowanja, Kenya. Here, researchers discovered clay lumps baked to temperatures between 400 to 500 degrees C, dating to approximately 1.4 million years ago. This precise temperature range is the signature of controlled fire. Natural wildfires typically burn hotter and more irregularly. The consistent temperature profile suggests deliberate maintenance. Someone controlled these flames with remarkable precision. At Gadeb in Ethiopia, archaeologists found evidence potentially pushing controlled fire back to 1.5 million years ago. Stone tools were discovered alongside reddened sediments, bearing the distinctive chemical signatures of ancient hearths. What makes Gadeb particularly significant is the combination of evidence, tools and fire traces together. This association strengthens the case for intentional use rather than natural coincidence. An overlooked category of evidence comes from paleoenvironmental studies. Sediment cores from East African lakes reveal unexpected patterns of landscape burning coinciding with Homo erectus emergence. These cores show altered fire regimes, changes in burning frequency and intensity that don't match natural climate patterns. The timing correlates precisely with Homo erectus's appearance in the fossil record. Could these altered fire patterns represent the first landscape-scale impact of human fire management? If so, it would push evidence for controlled burning back to the very origin of Homo erectus. Another category of out-of-place evidence comes from biochemical analysis of ancient cooking residues. New techniques can detect microscopic traces of cooked foods preserved on stone tools and in dental calculus. At Koobi Fora, researchers identified altered plant starches in dental calculus from 1.2 million-year-old Homo erectus specimens. The specific alterations match patterns produced by cooking rather than natural decomposition. These biochemical signatures provide a different line of evidence from traditional archaeological approaches. They directly demonstrate what Homo erectus was eating and how they were preparing it. Microscopic analysis of bone fragments from multiple sites reveals another anomaly. The specific fracture patterns match those produced by controlled cooking rather than natural fires or non-thermal processing. When bones are heated to specific temperatures, they develop distinctive microcracks and color changes. The patterns found at numerous Homo erectus sites show precisely controlled heating, impossible in natural fire contexts. Perhaps the most provocative out-of-place evidence comes from South African caves. At Zhoukoudian and Kromdrall, researchers discovered burned bones dating to 1.5 million years ago, with microscopic patterns indicating controlled temperatures. These sites contain something else extraordinary: circular patterns of burned sediment. These potential hearths suggest not just fire use, but constructed features for containing and controlling flames. Archaeological orthodoxy has difficulty explaining these features. How could such ancient hominins create structured hearths if they lacked fire creation technology? The logical conclusion challenges conventional timelines. In China's Nihewan Basin, recent excavations revealed 1.4 million-year-old evidence of potential fire use. The site contains distinctive burned areas with spatial patterning inconsistent with natural fires. What makes Nihewan particularly significant is its environment. The region experiences cold winters that would be unsurvivable without fire technology. Homo erectus occupation here strongly implies fire mastery. At Israel's Gesher Benot Yaakov, archaeologists discovered something remarkable: clusters of burned seeds alongside stone tools. Microscopic analysis revealed controlled heating patterns impossible to achieve in wildfires. The seed assemblage suggests sophisticated knowledge, specific plants collected and processed using fire. This indicates not just fire control, but understanding of how heat transforms plant properties. We also find anomalous evidence in Homo erectus anatomy itself. Their increasing brain size required extraordinary energy input, an evolutionary development difficult to explain without cooking technology. Raw food requires hours of daily chewing to extract sufficient calories. Studies of modern humans on raw diets demonstrate they struggle to maintain weight despite spending 5 to 6 hours daily eating. Cooking dramatically increases caloric availability. It breaks down complex structures, making nutrients more accessible and reducing digestive costs. This caloric windfall could fund brain expansion. The mystery deepens when we consider technological capabilities. If Homo erectus could craft sophisticated Acheulean hand axes requiring forward planning and spatial reasoning, why wouldn't they develop fire creation technology? The cognitive requirements for toolmaking and fire creation significantly overlap. Both require understanding material properties, cause-effect relationships, and sequential processing. The capabilities are complementary. Some anomalous evidence comes from unexpected sources. Recent studies of human sleep patterns reveal we sleep significantly less than other primates, a difference potentially dating back to controlled fire use. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner's work with the Kalahari-san demonstrated how firelight extends productive hours. Evening conversations around fires create spaces for knowledge transfer, storytelling, and social bonding. These nighttime activities may have shaped human cognition and social structures for millions of years. Fire doesn't just cook food, it creates time and space for cultural transmission. When we integrate these disparate lines of evidence, the conventional timeline becomes increasingly untenable. The simplest explanation is that Homo erectus mastered fire much earlier than previously recognized. This recognition doesn't just change dates on a timeline, it fundamentally alters our understanding of human cognitive evolution. The mastery of fire may have been both consequence and cause of expanding intelligence. Chapter 7. Stakes Escalation. As our investigation deepens, the stakes of our central question escalate dramatically. The mastery of fire by Homo erectus isn't merely an academic curiosity. It fundamentally reshapes our understanding of human evolution and our own nature. If Homo erectus controlled fire nearly 2 million years ago, we must reconsider the entire trajectory of human cognitive development. Intelligence didn't emerge suddenly with Homo sapiens. It developed gradually through technological engagement with the natural world. The implications extend beyond paleoanthropology to how we understand ourselves today. Our relationship with technology isn't a recent development. It's the defining characteristic of human evolution stretching back millions of years. Traditionally, we've seen technology as something humans created, but the evidence suggests a more complex dynamic. Technology also created us. Fire didn't just serve Homo erectus, it shaped them through biological and cognitive coevolution. This perspective transforms how we understand human uniqueness. Our distinctiveness may not lie in abstract intelligence, but in our capacity for technological engagement, our ability to extend our capabilities through external tools. Anthropologist Tim Ingold describes this as the human condition of being perpetually immersed in socio-technical systems. If true, this trait emerged not with modern humans, but with Homo erectus almost 2 million years ago. Consider how fire technology would reshape social dynamics. Firelight creates a shared focus, extending social hours beyond daylight. The hearth becomes the center of social life, a pattern still embedded in human cultures worldwide. Fire requires collective maintenance and knowledge sharing. Unlike individual technologies, fire benefits the group and creates incentives for cooperation. This social dimension may have driven the development of language and abstract thinking. Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar suggests language evolved primarily for social cohesion. But what if it developed significantly through technology sharing? Teaching firemaking requires complex communication and abstract concepts. The preservation and transmission of fire knowledge would create selective pressure for enhanced memory, communication, and teaching abilities. Precisely the cognitive traits that expanded dramatically in the human lineage. As stakes escalate, we must confront an uncomfortable question. Have we underestimated our evolutionary cousins because of cognitive bias? Have we projected our assumptions about intelligence onto the archaeological record? Harvard primatologist Richard Wrangham argues provocatively, we've been looking at Homo erectus through the wrong end of the telescope. Their apparent technological simplicity may reflect our limitations in recognizing their innovations. The evidence forces us to consider a radical possibility, that Homo erectus wasn't just capable, but ingenious. Their 2 million-year survival spanning ice ages, volcanic winters, and dramatic climate shifts wasn't luck but knowledge. This recognition changes how we understand human history. We aren't the only human species to master complex technology. We're the inheritors of a technological legacy spanning millions of years. The stakes extend to how we conceptualize intelligence itself. We've traditionally privileged abstract thinking and symbolic representation, but effective environmental engagement requires equally sophisticated, embodied intelligence. Homo erectus may have possessed extraordinary ecological knowledge, understanding landscapes, materials, and natural processes in ways modern humans have largely forgotten. Their intelligence was contextual and applied rather than abstract. This ecological intelligence allowed them to survive catastrophic events that would challenge even modern civilization. The Toba supervolcano eruption, approximately 74,000 years ago, plunged Earth into volcanic winter. While this event potentially created a population bottleneck for Homo sapiens, evidence suggests Homo erectus populations in Southeast Asia survived. Their fire knowledge may have been crucial to enduring years of reduced sunlight and temperature. The archaeological record shows something remarkable. Homo erectus populations maintained cultural continuity across hundreds of thousands of years. Their technological traditions remained stable despite dramatic environmental changes. This longevity challenges our assumption of continuous progress. Homo erectus found sustainable adaptation patterns that served them across evolutionary time. Meanwhile, our own species has created planetary-scale disruption in mere centuries. The stakes of this investigation now touch our contemporary challenges. Understanding how Homo erectus achieved long-term sustainability may provide insights for our environmental crisis. Their relationship with fire was both technological and ecological. Indigenous fire management practices worldwide demonstrate how controlled burning can enhance biodiversity and ecosystem resilience. These approaches may preserve ancient knowledge dating back to Homo erectus. As climate change accelerates, archaeologists and ecologists are increasingly studying ancient fire regimes. The sedimentary record preserves evidence of how past human populations used fire to shape landscapes over millennia. This emerging field of pyrogeography reveals sophisticated ecological knowledge encoded in traditional fire practices. Knowledge potentially developed and refined since Homo erectus first mastered flames. The stakes extend beyond our theoretical understanding to practical applications. If we've misunderstood early human fire use, we may be misinterpreting archaeological evidence worldwide. Reanalysis of sites with new methodologies is revealing previously unrecognized fire evidence. What appeared as insignificant soil discoloration is now identifiable as ancient hearths through microstratigraphic and chemical analysis. These new techniques reveal a hidden landscape of human fire history, one where controlled burning wasn't exceptional, but routine, part of the daily technological practice of multiple human species for millions of years. As we approach the culmination of our investigation, the weight of evidence pushes toward a dramatic conclusion. Homo erectus wasn't just capable of maintaining found fires. They were true pyrotechnologists with the ability to create flames at will. The capacity for fire creation represents a cognitive threshold as significant as language or symbolism. It requires abstract understanding of invisible processes, the chemical reactions of combustion. It demands material knowledge, recognizing which substances burn and how. It necessitates sequential reasoning, preparing materials in specific ways and orders. These are hallmarks of advanced cognition. Recent psychological research reveals that even modern human children struggle to understand fire causation until relatively late in development. The concept that invisible properties determine combustion emerges around age 6 to 7. This cognitive challenge makes Homo erectus's accomplishment even more remarkable. They developed and maintained knowledge of invisible processes across generations without written language. Their fire mastery likely included multiple methods adapted to different environments and available materials, friction methods in humid regions, percussion techniques where appropriate minerals existed, each requiring specialized knowledge. The archaeological traces of these technologies remain frustratingly ephemeral. Wooden fire drills would decompose. Percussion stones might appear identical to other tools without microscopic wear analysis. But indirect evidence continues mounting. The geographic distribution of Homo erectus populations makes no sense without fire creation capacity. Their anatomical evolution aligns perfectly with cooking technology. Their survival through dramatic climate fluctuations becomes explicable. Their social organization patterns match what we would expect from fire-centered communities. As we stand at this threshold of understanding, the stakes couldn't be higher for human evolutionary science. If Homo erectus created and controlled fire nearly 2 million years ago, we must fundamentally reconsider what it means to be human. Our evolutionary story isn't one of steady progress toward greater intelligence. It's a complex interplay between technology, biology, and environment spanning millions of years. Fire wasn't just a tool, it was the technological niche that shaped our lineage. This recognition leads us to a startling possibility. What if the most successful human species wasn't Homo sapiens, but Homo erectus? Their 2 million-year reign dwarfs our brief 300,000-year existence. As we prepare to examine the final and most compelling evidence, the question becomes not just when humans mastered fire, but how that mastery created humanity itself, and whether the conventional narrative of human uniqueness requires complete reconsideration. What if our most fundamental understanding of human evolution has been distorted by focusing on what makes us exceptional, rather than what made us possible? The answer appears to be encoded in the relationship between humans and fire, a bond forged not thousands but millions of years ago. As we approach the culmination of our investigation, we must fairly examine competing theories about Homo erectus and their relationship with fire. Three main hypotheses dominate scientific discourse, each with supporting evidence and limitations. The first and most conservative is the late control theory, which dominates textbooks today. This model suggests Homo erectus opportunistically used natural fires for hundreds of thousands of years before developing true fire control. According to this theory, deliberate fire creation emerged only 400,000–500,000 years ago, with later human species like Homo heidelbergensis. Homo erectus merely maintained found fires, lacking the cognitive capacity for consistent fire production. Proponents point to the limited archaeological evidence of fire before 500,000 years ago. They argue that if Homo erectus truly mastered fire creation, we should find abundant hearths at their sites worldwide. The absence of clear hearth structures at many early sites strengthens this position. Why don't we find consistent fire evidence at every Homo erectus location if they possess this crucial technology? Harvard archaeologist Richard Gould argues, we must be careful not to project capabilities onto the archaeological record that aren't demonstrably there. The late control theory represents scientific conservatism, accepting only what can be definitively proven. This position acknowledges the preservation bias in archaeology. Fire evidence degrades over time, and open-air sites rarely preserve burning evidence. The absence of evidence isn't necessarily evidence of absence. Yet this theory struggles to explain Homo erectus's geographic expansion and anatomical evolution. How did a tropical species survive in temperate environments without reliable fire? How did their digestive systems adapt to cooked food without cooking technology? The second hypothesis, the intermediate control theory, suggests a middle ground. In this model, Homo erectus developed basic fire maintenance around 1 million years ago, but true fire creation emerged only 700,000–800,000 years ago. Evidence from Wonderwerk Cave and similar sites supports this timeline. Clear signs of controlled fire appear consistently from approximately 800,000 years ago, with more sporadic evidence before this period. This theory proposes that Homo erectus initially evolved without fire technology. They later developed methods for maintaining natural flames for extended periods, a capability requiring substantial cognitive resources. True fire creation, in this model, emerged through gradual discovery, perhaps when certain stones struck during tool-making created sparks. This accidental discovery would have transformed their relationship with flames. The intermediate theory accommodates both the limited early archaeological evidence and Homo erectus's impressive survival capabilities. It suggests they were innovative but within constraints, clever fire maintainers rather than true fire masters. This position has gained significant support in recent decades. It acknowledges Homo erectus's capabilities while maintaining a progressive evolutionary narrative, each human species developing more advanced cognitive traits over time. However, this theory still faces the geographical challenge. Homo erectus populations in northern China and Europe would have endured months without natural fire sources during winter. Fire maintenance alone can't explain their survival in these regions. The third and most controversial hypothesis is the early mastery theory, suggesting Homo erectus developed fire creation technology shortly after their emergence nearly 2 million years ago. This theory proposes that fire mastery wasn't a late addition to their toolkit, but a foundational technology that enabled their evolutionary success. Fire wasn't just something they used, it was something that shaped their evolution. University of Utah anthropologist Polly Wiesner argues, we've systematically underestimated the technological capabilities of early humans based on our preservation biases. The archaeological record preserves stone and bone, but fire technology often leaves ephemeral traces. The early mastery theory draws support from multiple lines of evidence: Homo erectus's anatomical adaptations to cooked food, their rapid geographic expansion, their extraordinary survival through climate fluctuations, all suggest sophisticated environmental control. Proponents point to the emergence of larger brains coinciding with reduced digestive systems. This pattern makes evolutionary sense only if cooking technology allowed redirecting metabolic resources from digestion to cognition. The energetics of brain evolution strengthen this position. Brains require extraordinary caloric input, approximately 20% of human energy expenditure, despite representing only 2% of body weight. Without cooking, obtaining sufficient calories becomes nearly impossible. Raw food requires hours of chewing and provides fewer accessible nutrients. Cooking creates the caloric surplus necessary for brain expansion. The geographic evidence is equally compelling. Homo erectus fossils appear in northern China by 1.7 million years ago, regions with freezing winters that would be unsurvivable without reliable fire. Critics argue this theory projects modern capabilities onto ancient species. They suggest we're underestimating what humans could accomplish without fire, or overestimating the challenges of ancient environments. Yet experimental archaeology consistently demonstrates the practical impossibility of these objections. Modern humans struggle to survive in temperate environments without fire technology, even with our accumulated knowledge. Each theory represents not just different timelines, but different conceptions of human cognitive evolution. The late control theory sees intelligence emerging recently and rapidly. The early mastery theory suggests deeper cognitive roots extending millions of years. As we weigh these competing hypotheses, we must consider which best explains the full range of evidence: archaeological, anatomical, geographical, and ecological. The simplest explanation may be the most controversial. If we set aside our assumptions about cognitive evolution and examine the evidence objectively, the weight increasingly favors earlier fire mastery than traditionally recognized. Homo erectus appears not as a primitive ancestor, but as a remarkably successful human innovator. The implications cascade beyond archaeology into how we understand our own nature. If advanced technological cognition emerged nearly 2 million years ago, human intelligence evolved primarily through technological engagement rather than social complexity. This reframes our evolutionary story. We didn't get smart and then create technology. Technology helped make us smart. The relationship between human cognition and technical innovation becomes circular rather than linear. As we examine the newest evidence in our next chapter, these competing theories will be tested against recent scientific discoveries. The answers may fundamentally reshape our understanding of what it means to be human. Recent scientific advances have transformed our ability to detect ancient fire use. Techniques unimaginable a decade ago now reveal evidence previously invisible to archaeologists. These methods are revolutionizing our understanding of when humans first mastered flames. Microstratigraphic analysis uses microscopic examination of sediment layers to identify subtle signs of burning. This technique can distinguish between natural fires and controlled hearths through ash crystal structures and temperature signatures. At Wonderwerk Cave, this approach revealed definitively controlled fires dating to 1 million years ago. The microscopic evidence shows precise temperature patterns impossible in natural fires, proof of deliberate maintenance. Even more revolutionary is the application of advanced chemical analysis. Spectroscopy can now detect molecular markers of combustion preserved in sediments for millions of years. These chemical signatures reveal burning events invisible to the naked eye. Archaeologists at Koobi Fora employed these techniques to analyze sediments associated with 1.5 million-year-old Homo erectus remains. They discovered unmistakable chemical patterns indicating repeated controlled burning, pushing definitive evidence back 500,000 years. This chemical evidence is particularly significant because it's less subject to preservation bias. While visible hearths might erode away, molecular traces can remain locked in sediments for millions of years. Another breakthrough comes from dental calculus analysis. This technique examines microscopic food particles trapped in mineralized plaque on ancient teeth. It provides direct evidence of diet and food preparation methods. Researchers examining Homo erectus teeth from Cima del Elefante in Spain identified cooked starch granules preserved in dental calculus. The specific heat alteration patterns match controlled cooking rather than natural exposure to fire. This evidence is remarkable because it doesn't rely on preserved hearths or burned materials. It directly demonstrates what Homo erectus was eating and how they were preparing it. The geographic distribution of these new findings creates a compelling pattern. Evidence of controlled fire use now appears at Homo erectus sites across Africa, Europe, and Asia, dating to similar time periods. This synchronous appearance across continents is difficult to explain as coincidence or independent discovery. It suggests a technology that emerged early in their evolutionary history and spread with their migrations. Recent discoveries in Indonesia have been particularly transformative. At Trinil, where Homo erectus was first identified in 1891, new excavations revealed evidence of controlled fire dating to approximately 1 million years ago. The Indonesian evidence is crucial because it appears in tropical environments where natural fire maintenance would be exceptionally difficult during monsoon seasons. Only true fire creation technology would allow consistent use in such conditions. These scientific advances reveal a paradox in our understanding of human evolution. If Homo erectus mastered fire nearly 2 million years ago, why has this evidence remained elusive until recently? The answer lies in preservation bias and detection limitations. Fire evidence degrades rapidly in most environments. Open-air sites, where Homo erectus primarily lived, rarely preserve clear hearths over evolutionary timescales. Additionally, archaeologists haven't systematically looked for fire evidence at the oldest sites. Many excavations occurred before modern techniques could detect microscopic evidence of controlled burning. This creates a circular problem. We don't find evidence because we haven't looked with the right tools, and we haven't looked with the right tools because we assumed the evidence wouldn't be there. When researchers specifically search for fire evidence using advanced techniques, they increasingly find it. This pattern suggests our understanding has been limited by technological constraints rather than historical reality. Another paradox emerges from brain evolution studies. Homo erectus brain size increased dramatically over their evolutionary history, from around 850 cc to over 1100 cc in later specimens. This brain expansion creates an evolutionary puzzle. Brains are metabolically expensive organs, requiring enormous caloric investment. Without a corresponding benefit, natural selection would not favor larger brains. What environmental pressure selected for these larger brains? The traditional explanation, social complexity, struggles to explain why brain size increased steadily for over 1 million years. If we consider fire technology as the selective pressure, the pattern makes more sense. Mastering fire creation, maintenance, and application across diverse environments would reward cognitive investment. This creates a feedback loop. Better fire technology provides caloric surplus through cooking. This surplus enables larger brains. Larger brains develop more sophisticated fire technology. The cycle continues across evolutionary time. Paleoclimatologist Sarah Beitzel notes, when we map Homo erectus brain evolution against evidence of fire use, the correlation is striking. The periods of most rapid brain expansion coincide with evidence of more sophisticated fire management. This correlation extends to their geographic expansion. As Homo erectus developed better fire technology, they could survive in previously uninhabitable environments. This drove both population growth and cognitive development. Another scientific breakthrough comes from experimental archaeology. Researchers have systematically tested different fire creation methods using only materials and techniques available to Homo erectus. These experiments demonstrate that even simple technologies, friction fire starting using wooden implements or percussion methods with pyrite and flint, can reliably create flames. The cognitive and technical requirements are well within Homo erectus capabilities. Harvard anthropologist Richard Wrangham's cooking experiments reveal another crucial insight. Cooking dramatically increases caloric availability from both plant and animal foods, often by 30 to 50%. This caloric windfall would have been transformative for early humans. It explains how Homo erectus could fuel larger brains and bodies while spending less time feeding. The energetic equation only balances with cooking technology. New evidence from fire-altered landscapes provides another line of support. Paleoecological records show changing fire regimes coinciding with Homo erectus emergence in multiple regions. These altered fire patterns, visible in lake sediment cores and soil profiles, show systematic changes inconsistent with natural climate fluctuations. They bear the signature of anthropogenic burning, landscape modification through controlled fire. This landscape-scale evidence is particularly significant because it doesn't rely on preserved hearths or habitation sites. It demonstrates widespread environmental modification through fire use across evolutionary time. The paradoxes multiply when we consider Homo erectus's extraordinary survival. They weathered multiple ice ages, volcanic winters, and dramatic climate fluctuations across 2 million years. This resilience is difficult to explain without sophisticated environmental adaptation techniques. Fire would have been central to surviving these challenges, providing warmth, light, protection, and food preparation capabilities. The Toba supervolcano eruption approximately 74,000 years ago provides a case study. This catastrophic event plunged Earth into volcanic winter, potentially creating a population bottleneck for Homo sapiens. Yet archaeological evidence shows Homo erectus populations survived in Southeast Asia despite proximity to the eruption. Their fire mastery may have been crucial to enduring years of reduced sunlight and temperature. As these scientific advances converge, they reveal a new picture of human evolution, one where fire mastery emerged not recently, but millions of years ago. One where technology and biology evolved together in complex feedback loops. The implications reach beyond archaeology to how we understand human nature itself. If technological innovation drove our cognitive evolution from the beginning, then our relationship with technology isn't new. It's the defining characteristic of humanity. We've journeyed across 2 million years of human evolution, examining the relationship between Homo erectus and fire. Now we reach the culmination, the synthesis that transforms our understanding of human origins and what it means to be human. The evidence converges toward a revolutionary conclusion. Homo erectus wasn't just an early fire user. They were true pyrotechnologists who mastered fire creation early in their evolutionary history. This mastery wasn't peripheral to their survival, but central to their identity. The archaeological evidence, while fragmentary, shows a clear pattern when viewed holistically. Burned materials appearing at Homo erectus sites across Africa, Asia, and Europe from at least 1.5 million years ago. The anatomical evidence is even more compelling. Their digestive anatomy, smaller teeth, jaws, and intestines, evolved for a diet of cooked food. This adaptation appears from the earliest Homo erectus specimens, suggesting cooking technology emerged with their species. Their geographic distribution creates perhaps the strongest case. Homo erectus remains appear in environments spanning tropical jungles to temperate woodlands with freezing winters. This range is explicable only with reliable fire technology. When we integrate these lines of evidence, the simplest explanation emerges. Homo erectus developed fire creation technology shortly after their emergence, nearly 2 million years ago. This technology wasn't an accidental discovery, but a cornerstone innovation that shaped their evolution. This revelation doesn't just change dates on a timeline. It fundamentally transforms our understanding of human cognitive evolution. Intelligence didn't emerge suddenly with modern humans, but developed gradually through technological engagement over millions of years. Fire represents humanity's first and most profound technological revolution. It wasn't just something Homo erectus used, it was something that shaped them biologically, cognitively, and socially. This transformative relationship created a feedback loop. Fire enabled cooking, which provided more calories with less effort. This caloric surplus funded larger brains. Larger brains developed more sophisticated fire technology. The cycle continued across evolutionary time. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham describes this as the cooking hypothesis on steroids. Not just cooking occasionally when opportunity allowed, but systematic fire creation and management as a core survival strategy. This mastery explains Homo erectus's extraordinary success. They weren't just lucky survivors, they were ecological engineers who reshaped their relationship with the environment through technological innovation. Their fire knowledge likely included multiple methods adapted to different environments: friction techniques using wooden implements in humid environments, percussion methods with flint and pyrite where available, each requiring sophisticated material understanding. This technological flexibility allowed them to thrive across dramatically different landscapes, from African savannas to Asian rainforests to European temperate zones, each environment requiring different fire creation and management strategies. Their fire mastery extended beyond mere heating and cooking. Evidence suggests they used controlled burning for landscape management, for tool production, for protection from predators, for extending productive hours beyond daylight. This multifaceted relationship with fire would have required sophisticated knowledge transmission systems. Teaching others to create and manage fire involves complex communication and demonstration. This necessity likely drove language development. The central revelation transforms our origin story. We are not recently evolved technological beings, but inheritors of a 2-million-year technological legacy. Our relationship with technology isn't new. It's the defining characteristic of our lineage. This perspective resolves numerous paradoxes in human evolution. Why did brain size increase steadily for over 1 million years? How did Homo erectus survive in environments that would kill unprotected humans? Why did their digestive anatomy change so dramatically? It also explains the Acheulean stasis, why their stone tool technology remained relatively consistent for over 1 million years, while their brains grew substantially. Their technological innovation focused elsewhere, on perishable materials and fire technology. This technological focus created a cognitive niche unique in the animal kingdom. Homo erectus wasn't just adapting to environments, but actively modifying them through technological intervention. They pioneered the distinctly human strategy of environmental engineering. The revelation extends to social organization. Fire creates natural gathering points that structure social interaction. The hearth becomes the center of communal life, a pattern still embedded in human cultures worldwide. Evening gatherings around flames extend productive social hours beyond daylight. These firelit hours create spaces for knowledge sharing, storytelling, and cultural transmission, activities that would reshape human cognition. Fire requires collective maintenance and knowledge transmission. Unlike individual technologies, fire benefits the group and creates incentives for cooperation. This social dimension would drive the development of teaching and communication. Perhaps most significantly, fire mastery demonstrates abstract cognition. Understanding combustion requires recognizing invisible principles, that certain materials have properties allowing them to transform through heat. This conceptual understanding represents sophisticated causal reasoning, the ability to recognize that invisible properties determine visible outcomes, a cognitive leap as significant as symbolic thinking or language. University College London archaeologist Matt Pope notes, "Creating fire demands understanding transformative processes invisible to the naked eye." This abstract thinking has been considered uniquely modern, but the evidence suggests it emerged millions of years ago. The Big Reveal forces reconsideration of human uniqueness. Our distinctiveness doesn't lie in recently evolved abstract intelligence, but in a deep evolutionary history of technological engagement. We've been technological beings for 2 million years. This perspective transforms how we understand ourselves today. Our current technological acceleration isn't a departure from our nature, but an expression of it. Humans have always extended their capabilities through technological innovation. It also reframes our evolutionary success. Homo erectus survived for nearly 2 million years, 10 times longer than our species has existed. Their technological adaptation created sustainable relationships with environments across evolutionary timescales. Meanwhile, our own species has created planetary-scale disruption in mere centuries. Perhaps there are lessons in their success, not just technological but ecological. They mastered fire without destroying the landscapes that sustained them. This brings us to the philosophical implications. If technological innovation is central to human nature, what responsibility comes with that capability? If we've been technological beings for 2 million years, how might that inform our future? The revelation about Homo erectus fire mastery isn't just about the past. It's about reconceptualizing what it means to be human. We are not recently intelligent beings who discovered technology, but inherently technological beings whose cognition evolved through engagement with the material world. This understanding may prove crucial as we face contemporary challenges. Climate change, resource depletion, and technological acceleration aren't separate from our nature but expressions of it. Understanding this deep history may help navigate our technological future. As we stand at this threshold of understanding, the evidence converges toward an inescapable conclusion. Homo erectus wasn't merely an evolutionary stepping stone toward humanity. They were the original technological humans, the forgotten fire masters who shaped our evolutionary destiny. Their legacy lives not just in our DNA, but in our relationship with technology itself. Every time we light a flame, we echo a technological revolution that began almost 2 million years ago, one that didn't just change human survival, but created humanity as we know it. As the sun sets over an East African savanna, not so different from the landscapes where Homo erectus first emerged, we've come full circle in our understanding. The mastery of fire wasn't just a technological innovation. It was the catalyst that created humanity itself. For 2 million years, our ancestors carried flames across continents and through ice ages. They didn't just survive with this technology, they were defined by it. Their relationship with fire shaped their bodies, their minds, and their social worlds. This recognition challenges us to reconsider what it means to be human. We are not recently intelligent beings who discovered technology, but inherently technological beings whose intelligence evolved through environmental engagement. Our technological nature isn't new, it's 2 million years old. Perhaps Prometheus didn't steal fire from the gods after all. Perhaps he represents something deeper, the moment when humans became something new by mastering flames. Not through divine intervention, but through the distinctly human capacity for technological innovation. As we face unprecedented planetary challenges, this deep history offers both perspective and possibility. If technological innovation is central to our nature, so too must be the wisdom to use it sustainably. After all, our most successful ancestors maintained technological balance for 2 million years. The story of Homo erectus, the forgotten fire masters, isn't just about where we came from, but about who we are. And perhaps if we're wise enough to learn from our evolutionary heritage, about who we might become. If you've enjoyed this journey through human evolution, please subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the depths of our shared human story.